Is there a motion to move into exec?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Is there a motion on 1603?
Mr. Chair, I want to move out to pass on 1603.
Is there a second?
And I want to offer amendment 2026-1288S.
Second.
All right, you need to talk to your amendment.
I will. I want to thank Senator Waters for putting together the original language that we used for a base for this amendment. And I want to thank all the members of the stakeholders of the various ones that met with me on Friday on this bill. We had a good, robust discussion and came up with an excellent compromise, which you see in front of you, represented in Amendment 1288. I'll quickly run through the changes that we made in reference to the original amendment that Senator Waters had put before us last week. You go to line 15, you will see we've added the words "and not to exceed 1 year after passage," just to make very clear, and the Director of Fish and Game was there, Director Simic, when we went over this. I want to make sure that she understood our expectation was that these rules would be put in place and that the needed to be done within 1 year. We wanted to make very clear that point was made. Next change you'll see is on line 21. Excuse me. We made a little bit of clarifying language on that line to, rather than having review and comment, as Senator Waters has suggested, we decided to settle on just notifying landowners that a new record was added to the database. That the whole point of these changes was to make sure that there's communication to a landowner when something is happening on their land. And that was one of the strong points that we want to make sure that this amendment reflected. Next change you'll find is on line 23 and 24. So the line now, in fact, I'll read the whole section C, starting on line 22. It now reads, "The executive director shall adopt rules pursuant to RSA 541A not later than 1 year after the effective date of this paragraph to establish procedures to obtain landowner permission for entry onto private property for the purposes of gathering by the Fish and Game Department of site-specific species data location." We essentially used the same base language that Senator Waters put in, but we clarified that it was Fish and Game and not just the department, because that left some confusion as to which department. And we just wordsmithed a little bit the other parts to make it so that everybody was happy with how it flowed. So that is the amendment as I present to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to commend Senator Pearl for the great work on this and really all the advocates, but I particularly appreciative of Director Simek and everyone else at Fish and Game who really came together very, very helpfully. And I, someone who deeply respects landowner rights and property rights as a baseline of how we consider these things. I think we found a very good way to let the important work be done about endangered species and other matters, while so that landowners are protected and also that we have integrity of the records of 50 years of research. So good work to all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of amendment 1288?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move out to pass as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Waters. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Consent.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Waters. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Okay, and Senator Pearl will take this out.
All right.
And is there a motion to move out of exec?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, now we're going to open up the hearing for HB 1723 and hear from our prime sponsor, who's been very patient, and we appreciate that. We have to get some work done here. We got 40 of your bills, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when we're bottling. Anyway, Representative, welcome.
Good morning, Chairman Avard and committee. Thank you very much. I'm Representative J.D. Bernardi, Rockingham 36, speaking for the prime sponsor, who is Rita Matson, Cheshire 18. She is home with a flu. So I've provided 3 pieces of paper for you to look at. One is this testimony. House Bill 1723 stems from a resolution in August of last year at NCSL, which was submitted by the New Hampshire delegation. It was passed unanimously and in a bipartisan manner, and I've provided you a copy of that resolution. Might also add that President Carson and Councilor Stephen have been briefed on this bill and support the plan. House Bill 1723 simply directs the New Hampshire Department of Energy to work with our utilities to survey New Hampshire's high voltage transmission transformers to find their vulnerabilities to coronal mass ejections, which could be called solar flares or geomagnetic storms, and high altitude electromagnetic pulses, which would come from a nuclear explosion, and report their findings. While this can be considered largely a federal issue, because most of these transformers at risk are found on transmission lines regulated by FERC or the RTOs and ISOs, there's been minimal action to date despite federal statutory commissions, policy directives, and a recent presidential executive order. Every year, it costs utilities across the country over $10 billion to repair damage done by solar weather events. FERC's national protection standard is 8 volts per kilometer, but only 4 volts per kilometer in New England. The Commission's recommendation, the federal commission's, is 85 volts per kilometer, and the international standard to protect from GICs is 100 volts per kilometer. There is new technology that can readily meet these standards. Instead of the annual cost of $10 billion to repair damage that can protect the entire U.S. grid for, it could protect the entire U.S. grid for $4 billion. The new technology has been deployed at 2 federal grids, TVA in Bonneville, and 1 local grid in Wisconsin. This study is only the first step to identify the magnitude of the risk and identify measures to protect residents of New Hampshire from catastrophic electric failure caused by these solar flares or EMPs. It requires evaluation of the risk of the large transformers serving New Hampshire customers. If they were destroyed by an EMP, it means a very, very long blackout, which could take 4 to 6 years to rebuild and replace those transformers, assuming the foreign manufacturers also survive. The Commission study reports that 3/4 to 90% of the U.S. population would not survive a catastrophic grid failure within 1 year of it happening. It is inevitable at some point in the future the Earth will be struck by a destructive geomagnetic storm. It's considered a 1 in every 500-year event. Our last experience with this was the Carrington event of 1859, 1 year before the start of the Civil War. The flare lasted for 5 minutes and resulted in a geomagnetic storm that lasted a week. It destroyed the telegraph systems of the US and Europe. It created an aurora that lasted for over a week that allowed people to read at night. Our recent auroras are near misses. Today, such an event would destroy our national grid. HB 723 merely tasks our state to do this assessment and provide recommendations on how we can protect the irreplaceable transformers and avoid a major catastrophe in the future. Other states are considering similar legislation this year. The goal is to document the risks so FERC and ISO New England can no longer deny and delay. I hope this bill gets the same kind of support that our NCSL resolution did, and I hope you share Rep. Mattson's desire to be first in the nation in calling on this vital assessment. And thank you very much. Open for any questions.
forewarned is forearmed.
Yes.
So we have what might be a committee amendment from Eversource wanting to, as is usual, to ensure this is an accessible charge for the work that they're going to do. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's why in the bill, it says there is money set aside for DOE as well to do that work.
Thanks for taking my question. Did Eversource bring this amendment to the House?
I don't believe this exact wording was brought to the House when we did our amendment to perfect this bill, but the concept was discussed, so I have no concern with that.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Thank you, Representative Shea.
Good morning, Michael Licata representing Eversource. I'll be very brief. Appreciate the bill's sponsors' focus and passion on this issue. I'll really just confine my remarks to the amendment. We hope is a very simple, clarifying amendment that just makes it clear that it's the utility assessment that is paid for by customers, not an assessment on the utilities that will be the source of funding. And just to answer Senator Rosenwald's question, we didn't see the final bill language until the executive committee action on the bill. So unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity to provide the clarifying language to the House. But hopefully it's fairly straightforward, and happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Just curious why the ratepayers should pay rather than the utilities.
Sure. So this is a Department of Energy investigation. It's the state essentially telling the department to answer a series of questions about whether the existing NERC standard that has been modeled by ISO New England is adequate or not. So that would be a state-run investigation, which should not be assessed on the utility.
Further questions, discussions? Seeing none, thank you very much. And our final speaker, of course, is the premier.
What's that today?
Keep accruing titles here. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Josh Elliott, Director of the Division of Policy and Programs. With me, I have Emily Tomasi, who works in our state energy program, who will be testifying on this bill, and then I will be happy to take any questions.
Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you to Josh for the introduction. Once again, for the record, my name is Emily Tomasi. I'll start off by saying the department is neutral on this bill. I think based on what we've heard from the prime sponsor, it's clear what the department is being expected to investigate on and provide a report for. We'd be utilizing a consultant for this, and we'd be going out to bid with a cap of $350,000, which is laid out in the bill. We'd feel a consultant is necessary to provide the necessary expertise for the information expected in the report. On page 2, line 34, it states that the department has 90 days to commence the investigation. The department does have concerns that this might not be enough time to issue the request for proposals for the consultant and then get the subsequent contract approved by the governor and council. And we ask that you consider extending this to 120 days.
What line?
Line 34.
How many days?
120.
And you're still good with the 12 months?
Yes. And additionally, the department has identified that on page 3, line 8, there's a small correction that's needed. The first word reads as specifically, and it should read as specially to refer to the special assessment of utilities.
On line 8, say that again, please?
Line 8 on page 3, it should read as specially, not specifically.
Especially.
Specific assessment.
I'm sure our grammar expert would have caught that. But thank you.
And with that, I'm happy to take any questions with support from Josh if I need it.
Very good job.
Thank you.
All right. Senator Waters.
So we have a draft amendment that verifies that this is an accessible cost. Have you seen that?
I saw it a couple weeks ago. I just want to refresh my memory in terms of the, oh, thank you, Joshua.
There's a copy, just to make sure you're good with it. And make sure it has the word specially, not specifically, in that version.
Especially or
Specially, it's a special, it's called a special assessment, very special.
Yeah, specifically is struck out entirely. I don't think I should importance of that. So the one issue, and I know our legal counsel has raised this issue of that there is an inconsistency in how the legislature has defined or directed the agency to do special assessments. There are some ways where it just says do it, through a special assessment. In other circumstances, it cites the specific RSA, which is 365.37. The preference for the department is actually you could just take this, take the language that's proposed by Eversource here, rather than cite the statute specifically. There could be an argument made that, oh, where the legislature didn't specify this statute, that therefore the agency is not allowed to do a special assessment. So the way that it's been consistently done is just not refer to the statute specifically, but say that the department is allowed to conduct a special assessment. So
How do you change it?
So I would take the Eversource amendment as proposed, and I would just say where it is bolded, fund the investigation through a special assessment, and then strike out in accordance with RSA 367.37, and then just leave the remainder of the language.
Joshua, do you have that?
I can touch base. Yeah.
Well,
I've got-
I want to exec this right away.
Okay. I will make my notes and then hand it back to
Good.
Joshua.
All right. So any further discussion? Senator Rosenwald, anything? All right.
Let me just confirm, Josh, I think I've got this right. So you would say not to fund the investigation through a special assessment
And you gotta strike RSA.
in an amount not to exceed $350,000.
That is correct, Senator.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Thank you.
You are our final speakers. Any further questions? Seeing none, we're gonna close the hearing.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to move into exec? Senator Waters, seconded by Senator Pearl. All in favor? Aye. Is there a motion?
I'll move 1723 ought to pass.
Second.
Discussion.
I will move a committee amendment. The committee amendment on page 2 will replace 90 with 120.
Joshua, you have that?
Line 34, yeah.
And then on page 2, what line? I'm sorry, did I give the-
Line 8.
Well, page 3 is, yeah, I think you want to just rewrite the paragraph 3 to this.
Yeah, and so page 3 then will be what Josh has in hand.
Which would read,
Could you read that back to us, Josh? Yeah, go ahead.
So it'll read, same thing with, section 3, fund the investigation through a special
assessment
assessment
in an amount.
in an amount
Yep.
not to exceed $350,000.
Perfect, you got it.
And that's scratch for this investigation, correct?
Yes. Good job. All right. We got sign language going on here.
We're changing the line 2434 for 120 days, correct?
Correct. Senator Rosenwald?
What was the last question thing?
We're changing it from 90 days to 120.
Right. To, page 3. How does that paragraph now read?
The one that we just did,
Yes.
not in any law, rule, or to the contrary, the department shall have the authority necessary to conduct its investigation and implement this subdivision, including but not limited to the authority to request information from public utilities, including transmission utilities regarding transmission infrastructure located within the state of New Hampshire, to fund the investigation through a special assessment in an amount not to exceed $350,000.
So we struck out the word other from line 4.
I
I
think
didn't hear it
I think he just,
say.
you, I know, I caught that too.
Yeah.
Good job. But other is still in there, right? Notwithstanding, you just kind of read over it. You probably read it fast.
Notwithstanding any other law. Yep.
Yeah.
you got it.
Any
You got
other.
it.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, I thought you read it fast.
thank you.
So,
That's what I have.
that's what I have too.
So that's the committee amendment.
All in favor of the committee amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed?
To pass as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Pearl. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Consent.
Second.
Seconded by, let's get this in. Senator Rosenwald gets it. On the second, all in favor of consent?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Want me to take it?
Yeah,
or
Senator
you want-
Waters can take this one out. And with that, is there a motion to move out of exec? Seconded by Senator Avard. All in favor of moving out of a consent exec? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Now we're going to hear from the prime sponsor of 1676.
So strictly speaking, I am not the prime sponsor. I am one of the other sponsors, but this was essentially a bill that was worked on by the entire leadership of House E&A. So, I am Representative Barber felt that I might be the better person to introduce the bill. What HB 1676 does is it creates a requirement that any sales of anticoagulant rodenticides, either first or second generation, be made only to persons in the state who have who are licensed or registered with the department as applicators. So there is the capacity for oversight. There's the capacity for there's the requirement that they be trained. What the problem with anticoagulant rodenticides is that so first of all, these are used typically as rodent poisons, mostly rats and mice, the problem is that the poison remains in the body of the animal that has been the target animal long after the animal has actually died. And that means that if that body is accessible to carrion eaters, then the carrion eaters will then get poisoned by it. If it is accessible to raptors, even if the animal isn't dead yet, it's going to be slow and easy target, and most predators go for easy targets. So there's a significant secondary poisoning problem with raptors, and they have been showing up at rehabilitation centers, either dead or very sick, and this has been noted throughout the Northeast and more broadly across the country. There are also another population that is particularly affected is the fisher cat population. And so in New Hampshire and Vermont, 93 to 94% of all fisher cats show exposure to anticoagulant rodenticides. It's somewhat lower in Maine, similar numbers in Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York. So this is really a significant risk to our wildlife. It is also a risk to family pets, because if your family pet decides that finds a dead rat or a dead mouse and eats it, then that is the crux of the problem is the secondary poisoning, and the solution that so there were two solutions that were brought to our committee. One solution was an outright ban, and we felt that the outright ban would be overly restrictive. Actually, I'm going to scroll back a little bit here because this is the second time it's come to our committee. The first time it came to our committee was in 2023, and there was an outright ban. And we heard a lot of testimony, both in terms of the wildlife impacts and in terms of the necessity for maintaining some access to the anticoagulant rodenticides as a tool in the toolbox for people involved in pest control. So both in the residential and commercial pest control area and in the agricultural area, because you need to be able to protect your food stores before they go to market. And rats are difficult critters to get rid of. So at that point, we were told that the EPA was going to be coming out with new and improved rules on anticoagulant rodenticides in early 2024, and we retained the bill because we thought we would, in order to see what the federal government was going to do, see if they were going to set it at a restricted use, and then let the Board of Pesticide Control work with it appropriately at that point. And the BPC did a study on it. They did recognize that that there is a problem, and we were expecting that they would, if the feds didn't do something, they would. 2.5 years later, no action. And so there were two bills that came to our committee to address this. One was an outright ban. And that had the same issues in terms of, you're taking something out of the toolbox. We weren't entirely enthusiastic about that. We worked with someone from the Regional Pesticide Applicators Organization to put together a bill that would restrict the sale of the rodenticides only to licensed applicators. And so that the reason that we went that way, rather than saying this needs to be in rules, is because this is really a regional issue. And we need to have, if it's just New Hampshire that says it has to be restricted use, then someone can easily go and get their 5-gallon bucket of Escar from a Tractor Supply in Maine or in Massachusetts or in Vermont, and circumvent our restriction on sales. And so by making it a statute rather than putting in rules, it makes it available for other states to replicate this law in their own states, so that we would be able to cover all of New England, perhaps all of the Northeast, with a consistent bill. And consistency is really a great benefit for the industry, because at the moment if you just look from state to state to state, there's a patchwork of rules. Each state has its own particular twist on things. So in order to comply, a pesticide company or a pest management company that works across state borders, which is very common in New England, has to have a different set of procedures for every state they work in. By making this bill a statute, it makes it possible for it to be replicated by our neighboring states. There's the exact same bill is being introduced in Rhode Island at this point too. And that makes it much easier for the pest control companies to maintain good, consistent compliance. So I think that pretty much covers my introduction. I'd be happy to take questions.
No questions. Well done.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks.
very much, Representative. Let's see. Representative Nick Germano. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable members. I am Representative Nick Germain. I represent Cheshire 15, which is most of Keene, Chesterfield, Hinsdale, Walpole, Surrey, and Westmoreland. And I'll keep my comments very, very brief. I would like to reiterate some points. Number one is that this bill is coming to you as a product of a lot of work that has been done over the past couple of years. We've worked through various different iterations. We've worked with industry, we've worked with the department, and we've worked with the environmental groups in order to bring to you a bill that has been considered very thoughtfully. It is a bipartisan bill, as Representative Bixby pointed out. There was another bill that was brought to our committee similar to the one from 2023, which would be an outright ban. For various reasons, that was not going to fly in our committee. Again, what you have here is a product of members of our committee from both sides of the aisle coming together on something that we think is going to be, we can work in New Hampshire. Also, as Representative Bixby pointed out, working with industry, it was clear to them, or clear to us from what they had to say, that we need a regional regulatory framework. And so this is a bill that can provide that kind of regional regulatory framework. Both industry and our farmers, I spoke with some of our farmers at our Cheshire County Farm Bureau meeting, agree that we need a solution that is going to fit into a larger regional regulatory framework. And so those are all of the points I simply wanted to reiterate. So I thank you all for your time.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Germana. And, you know, I've supported doing something about this even before the previous bill. And I think we pretty much consensus that something needs to be done, but we don't know exactly how to go at it. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it does seem, I've been involved with trying to limit consumer access to things when it came to vaping, alcohol sales through the mail, and so on and so forth. And, you know, you can put these in statute and they're not enforced by anybody. So I think that, you know, it might make sense, is what I'm trying to say, for us to really look hard at whether we could go the rulemaking route. And do you understand what I'm trying to say about that?
I do. I appreciate that, Senator. I would say that the department, again, we've worked with the department on this, and at the beginning of the bill, lines through 4 through 7, that actually is a product of work between us and the department. They suggested the number of specific chemicals that should be in and out. So I would say that we have worked with the department, and we feel that this works in statute, and because it keeps coming back, we feel that's something the legislature should act on.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Kurt? And I just want to let everybody know that we're probably not going to exec this one today, but just for your edification.
Good morning, I'm Kurt Ehrenberg. I am the New Hampshire State Director for Humane World for Animals. And we support this legislation. You know, it restricts the sales to licensed professionals. It closes the online loopholes. And it protects the natural pest control of predators from being poisoned. So that's why we support it. We think it's a really good idea. And there was a lot of work put in by the committee in the House and by many citizen advocates for animals also worked really hard on this. So I hope you'll ought to pass this bill.
Questions from the committee? Senator Rosenwald.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my question. I was reading this morning over my first cup of coffee about these rodenticides and the spread of rickettsia diseases by fleas, and that they could include cats. Do you know how many cats in New Hampshire have been sickened by the fleas that have caught the
The plague happened.
rickettsia from a rat or mouse.
You're certainly more well-read than I am, Senator, so I am not familiar with that or in any way qualified to speak on that subject today.
But you like cats.
I do,
Okay.
quite a lot.
That makes you a good person.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
All right.
That's a good way to go.
Well, no further questions. Thank you very much, Kurt. Robert Stenson? Robert Stenson? Stevenson. All right, folks, we have a grammar teacher in here, okay? And an English professor. I couldn't read it. I apologize. Not in here? Come on in. Yeah. Roger Stevenson. Okay. Yes, thank you. Chairman's dyslexic. Just want you to know that. All right.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Roger Stevenson. I'm a resident of Stratham, graduate of University of New Hampshire with a degree in zoology and a graduate degree in wildlife biology. So I'm here to support this bill. And I reflected on a couple of reasons why, a poison was eliminated decades ago. And that was because of the bald eagle being eliminated in the state of New Hampshire in the 60s and 70s. When laws removed the poisons, bald eagles were able to begin their recovery. And in 1988, a pair nested at Lake Umbagog. And in the 1990s, the populations have expanded. And around the time my daughters were born, the species was removed from the endangered species list, the threatened and endangered species list here in New Hampshire in 2017. That was through the efforts of New Hampshire Audubon, many volunteers, and due to the elimination through regulation of a poison. Wildlife protection comes in many forms, science-based stewardship and monitoring, such as that done by the New Hampshire Non-Game and Endangered Wildlife Program. Wildlife protection comes in the form of habitat protection by state agencies and land trusts and conservation commissions. And protection comes through the efforts of voluntary conservation efforts by willing landowners. But you and the legislature are a vital part of this protection scheme because without you and without laws like this, the poisons will persist, and all of the stewardship and monitoring and land conservation will not be protecting raptors, birds of prey, bald eagles. Today, it's not unusual for me to see a bald eagle cross Route 33 when I visit my grandchildren in Greenland. And it's because of that elimination of the poison. So I do urge you to support HB 1676. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Is it Kalen? Hey, all right. Kalen Graber?
Well,
Graber.
braver.
Two B's with Gribby Graber.
He's the big
All right, right.
I always thought out of line. You know the rule.
I know the rules, but there's always exceptions to the rules. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Right there. Now is it okay? So my name is Kaylin Graber. I represent today Rodenticide Free New Hampshire. I want to thank you all, by the way, for this opportunity to speak. And we're a grassroots organization that's formed specifically around this issue of rodenticides and the secondary poisoning that occurs because of them. And it might surprise you, or maybe it doesn't, that we are opposed to this bill. I have a couple of things for you to provide for you here. First, I have some pictures of wildlife that, I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly how the process works. I'm hoping that's okay to,
Fine.
okay. Those are just some pictures of wildlife that has suffered from secondary poisoning from these rodenticides. And I also have, which I probably should have given you as well, sorry about that, I'm making you work hard today, is a letter from us that sort of outlines the reasons we're opposed. And I'm not going to go through the whole letter, obviously, but I do want to make a few important points. The main reason we're opposed to this bill is because we believe that this restricting these pesticides only to the pest control companies is going to actually make the problem worse over time and not better. The reasons for that, or the data that we have on that, is sort of outlined on pages 2 and 3. First of all, I know that people say that these SGARs, these second generation anticoagulants, are a tool in the toolbox, but they're really not a tool in the toolbox. They're the tool in the toolbox. There may be other tools, but they're not really being used by the licensed professionals. This is their go-to, are the rodenticides. The second main point is that commercial use of SGARs is projected to grow. I just want to read this to you. The global market for anticoagulant rodenticides is expected to grow from 3.8 billion in 2020 to 5.8 billion by 2027. So this is a significant, and the U.S. accounting for more than 1/3 of that. So this is a problem that's being driven by the pest control companies. And the last point is that even though in 2015 the EPA banned consumer use of SGARs, continues to go up. The secondary poisonings continue to go up. The use of these anticoagulants continues to go up. This is granting the pest control companies a virtual monopoly on, so I mean, they're very happy about it, but it's not going to solve the problem. That is our main point. We supported the full ban. We would like the board to consider, and there are, in the last couple pages are just some alternatives. There are plenty of alternatives like birth control and exclusion techniques. Rodents are not a significant public health problem. And of course, if there is a significant health problem, there's always the potential to carve out, exceptions for emergency use, should that happen. So we also have here a petition that was signed by over 300 New Hampshire residents. And this petition, which I'll leave with you as well, is from people who we've spoken to, because part of my role as, being a member of this organization is that I speak to people who have hired pest control companies, and they seem shocked. They're shocked when we talk to them about how much damage this is doing to wildlife. So they're uninformed. Like the pest control companies are not informing people about the damage that this is doing. So in lieu of a full ban, we would like you to consider adding some amendments. I'm not exactly sure how this process works either, but for example, we could add a phase out, so we phase out these chemicals slowly over time. Better labeling requirements would be nice. Also, perhaps a statement could be read every time the pest control companies, get a new customer. They could make sure that the customer was informed, that at least they were making an informed choice, that they're not harming wildlife, and they can have alternatives can be offered. So the biodiversity crisis is a huge problem in New Hampshire. We are losing wildlife rapidly, and pesticides, it's always the same story. They kill non-target species. They don't work over time due to resistance. We haven't, since DDT was banned, our pesticide use has gone up. It peaked in the 1980s and it's been pretty steady ever since. And our pest problems continue to get worse. So not only are pesticides not working to manage the problem over the long term, they're also causing the problem by killing natural enemies, and So our position is that we need to think about how we can implement nature-based solutions to these pest problems and to stop relying on pesticides. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Anita.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Anita Fernandez, and I am with New Hampshire Audubon. Carol Foss is our Senior Policy Advisor and Wildlife Biologist who wanted to be here today to provide testimony. Unfortunately, due to an illness, she could not. So I am here instead to provide strong support of this bill on behalf of New Hampshire Audubon in her absence. I also want to acknowledge that I don't have the credentials that Carol has, so if any members have questions for me, I may have to note them down and ask her to follow up with you. So I just want to take a step back a little bit. We've heard a lot of testimony about how this impacts wildlife and pets, and I also want to recognize that these anticoagulants inhibit vitamin K production within the body of any animal that ingests or consumes it through secondary poisoning, which causes internal bleeding and fatal hemorrhaging. And regardless of whether you're a friend to mice and rats, I think we can all agree that's a pretty horrific way to go. But because these anticoagulants first came out as the first generation anticoagulant rodenticides that were not as strong, second generation anticoagulant rodenticides pose a particularly increased threat to bioaccumulate in the body, move their way up the food chain, and then secondarily poison some animals which you may already be familiar with, such as raptors like hawks, owls, and eagles, mammals like fishers, but also some that you may not have thought of. Wildlife rehabilitator Amanda Leaf, who is with the Heal Veterinary Clinic down in Massachusetts, has documented the presence and fatality of rodenticide poisoning in both great blue heron, which don't even typically eat rodents, and also snapping turtles. Equally disturbing, CAVES, which is the Concord's Capital Area Veterinary Emergency Services right here in town, just during calendar year 2025, has treated 265 dogs and 12 cats for rodenticide poisoning. I can't speak to whether they were due to flea bites, but that is still our companion animals being affected by these poisons as well. So what are the alternatives? Well, responsible pest control companies are already utilizing IPM, or integrated pest management, which starts with basics like exclusion and sanitation before moving to repellents, traps, and rodent birth control tablets. These are non-lethal methods, and they are also safe alternatives for homeowners to use on their own. Now, even though the EPA has issued a ban of retail sales to consumers, they are still available through many online sources. Typically, they're sold in extremely large quantities for a homeowner to be able to use. And although theoretically that would deter non-commercial use, in reality, it's increasing the risk of both improper use and improper storage by homeowners. So this bill, which would restrict the use to licensed pest control applicators, gives us two benefits. One is in data collection and one is in education. The Division of Pest Control already tracks annual usage by licensed applicators. So through that data, coupled with areas that are highly susceptible to this secondary poisoning, we as the public, as organizations, are able to better collaborate with these companies to determine where areas of more risk-free strategies are necessary and better control methods that don't involve just jumping into rodenticide usage. So on behalf of New Hampshire Audubon, I strongly urge the committee to vote ought to pass, and I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there questions from the committee? Senator Rosenwald.
So this morning I also read that UNH has determined that the rat population in both Manchester and Nashua has been increasing. And I don't think it's in private homes. I think it's probably on the streets or outside of commercial businesses. It's not the mice, it's the rats. Just wondering what your take on that is.
So part of our role as New Hampshire Audubon is also outreach and education. So I don't have data on this, but we have spoken with several members of the public all the way from Nashua up into Coos County and Lancaster, where people have reported that, as you're saying, these issues do generate frequently in areas such as farming or more industrial usage where trucks are driving in and out of buildings and so doors cannot be closed and things like that. Yes, I agree.
Further discussion? Seeing that, thank you very much, Anita.
Thank you.
Let's go with David Russo.
David Russo.
Russo?
Good morning, I'm David Rousseau with New Hampshire Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food, representing the department as well as the Division of Pesticide Control and the Pesticide Control Board. So thank you for the opportunity today. House Bill 1676, the Department of Agriculture, Markets and Food supports the proposal to restrict second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides through the Pesticide Control Board. So we're in opposition to the bill, but would appreciate this to progress through the board itself. The Pesticide Control Board has rulemaking authority. The second generation anticoagulant rodenticides are listed as the first four here: Brotafaculum, bromadiolone, diethylalone, and difenaculum. Those are your second generation anticoagulants. The first generations are your warfarin, chlorfascinone, and difascinone. And thank you for letting me say the scientific names of the active ingredients. I know it's a lot. But the department, as well as the board, is progressing towards restricting the use of the second generations, not so much the first. The Pesticide Control Board can restrict the sale and use of pesticides. Again, recent board discussion includes restricting the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. It was mentioned that the United States Environmental Protection Agency actually proposed an interim decision to restrict. Now, restricted use pesticides has a very distinct definition. This amendment is a sales restriction. It's not a use restriction. The board is considering a stricter approach by restricting the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides through restricting both sales and use. Where the pesticide dealer is defined, where restricted use pesticide is defined. Again, not considering the first generation anticoagulant rodenticides being restricted at this time, given that they're less toxic than the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. If second generation anticoagulant rodenticides are restricted by rule through the board, the use becomes restricted, the dealer sales become restricted, use and sales, record keeping and reporting is required, and penalties already exist for noncompliance. The amendment is redundant. There are existing requirements now, if these were restricted, specifically proof of licensing at time of sales, dealer record keeping, pesticide applicator record keeping and reporting, and the penalties. While the Division of Pesticide Control supports the intention of restrictions on second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, it recommends that specific restrictions be established again through the rulemaking by the New Hampshire Pesticide Control Board Law, RSA 430. It provides for pesticide rulemaking, and the division strongly recommends that the specifics of such a proposal, that is restricting the second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, be addressed through rules, not statute. Establishing restrictions through rulemaking offers regulatory continuity, consistency, and a more uniform placement of regulation, particularly relative to administration and enforcement. Thank you.
Senator Pearl with a question.
I have a couple, actually.
Actually, it has a couple.
All right. Thank you, Director, for coming in. Would you agree that this is a pretty clear message from the legislature that we want to see the department act on making at least some of these compounds restricted use and limit their general everyday use in our state?
Yes.
Follow? understanding that, do you have a time frame? You've indicated that the Pesticide Control Board, which I tend to agree with you, we have a pretty good regulatory structure in place in our state. Do you have a time frame of when you feel that the board may act on putting at least the second generation coagulants on the restricted use list?
The board is interested in the outcome of this bill and will be ready to move as soon as this bill is resolved, whether it goes forward or not. If this bill goes forward and the board further restricts pesticides, there'll be a conflict between the language here and the existing rules. This identifies the record keeping is a different time frame, and penalties shouldn't even be in here because they're in the existing rules. So the board can move quickly. They're anxious to move quickly, but they didn't want it to conflict with what the outcome of this bill will be.
Follow up? So there was a concern raised about online sales and enforcement of restricted use sales. How do you handle that now? If you could just, for the benefit of the committee, sort of outline. I know I hold a restricted use license and I know what I'm able to do and what I'm not, but I think for the benefit of the board, it would be helpful if they understood how you enforce that currently.
Certainly, online enforcement is done in a couple of ways. We can do random checks ourselves. We have an enforcement crew. We also work closely with the other states, and other states are quick to flag when a restricted use product shows up in the online sales. We have experience working with the Attorney General's office when we run into this, and as far as getting people to either take the products off the market or manage them properly. So there already is an existing enforcement pathway to deal with online sales.
Follow-up? There was a discussion about regional regulation. As I understand it, this is kind of left up to every state to do independently. And but you've sort of touched on that a little bit with your work with other states. Could you just give us your thoughts on how you generally enforce the differences between our state versus others? I've operated in more than one state, and I understand that we have to follow different rules in each state, but I thought maybe you could give us a little input on that.
Certainly, from an industry perspective, and I'm not in industry, I can see the embracing the when it's the same sort of regulation rather than being different state by state. I understand that, but we are New Hampshire. We're usually more stricter as far as pesticides control goes. One point I will make is I don't know how EPA has obviously not moved ahead from their interim decision, which was to restrict. But if they do move ahead, then you've got every state needing to get in line, even if this was a sort of an attempt to not have to call it restricted use pesticide, just restricting the license, the sales. So, yeah, I don't mind being different than other states, and I know it does put a burden on the applicators, licensed applicators, but this is a New Hampshire approach.
If I may, I have held a license in Massachusetts as well as New Hampshire, and I can tell you New Hampshire is definitely more strict to work in from an agricultural perspective than Massachusetts is, which you don't hear that a lot, but on this particular topic, they definitely are. So I think you've answered my other questions that I had written down, so thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Dan Bergeron.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Dan Bergeron. I'm the Chief of the Wildlife Division at New Hampshire Fish and Game. I'm here on behalf of the Commission and the Department in support of HB 1676. I'll start by saying I'm not a public health expert. I'm going to speak more to impacts on wildlife. So it's been mentioned before, so I'll kind of be brief with this, but the impacts to wildlife are well documented. Direct mortality in raptors throughout the nation has been documented. And the more we look into this, the more widespread it appears this issue is. It's not unlike PFAS, where when we started looking, we were finding that these things were pretty much everywhere, and that seems to be the case with rodenticides. It's been referenced in raptors, it's been referenced in different carnivore species. They're even finding it, as was mentioned, in turtles, but beaver and otter, places where you wouldn't necessarily expect to find these, we're finding them. And the question that we have is, there's the direct mortality when the bird or when an animal eats enough of these, where they hemorrhage and they bleed out. But there's a growing body of evidence that there might be sublethal impacts that are impacting populations. So at what level can these suppress immune systems that make animals more susceptible to disease, reduce reproductive potential? We have a large-scale study going on right now in coordination with the University of New Hampshire to look at the decline in our state's fisher population. The main purpose of this study is not specific to rodenticides, but is certainly one of the mortality factors that we're going to be looking at. So again, it's well documented that these have negative impacts on wildlife species in the state and in the region and the broader country. It was mentioned before, we've done some preliminary work. We looked at 35 fox and fisher, both red and gray fox and fisher. We found these, at least one of these components, most animals had multiple components in them. 34 of the 35 animals. There was a preliminary work that was done stretched from Pennsylvania up to Maine. Almost 600 animals, 50% of those had rodenticides in them. And Vermont and New Hampshire had some of the highest exposure levels at 93% of the animals tested. So they're pretty widespread in our wildlife right now. We're trying to figure out what those impacts are. From that perspective, we are supportive of any of these measures that will reduce the impacts to our wildlife populations. I would certainly defer to the committee and others if you think that rulemaking is more appropriate for this. Being from another state agency, we certainly understand the benefits of doing things in rule, and there is additional opportunity for input and back and forth, but we are certainly supportive of anything that reduces these on the landscape. I will point out that, and it was somewhat mentioned before, there's a big difference between licensed applicators and the members of the public. Licensed applicators have some oversight, they have some training, and they have some restrictions on how these are supposed to be used. These are supposed to be used according to the label. Off-label use is illegal, but of course for members of the general public, that's difficult to police unless you get a complaint from a neighbor or something. And if you need any evidence as to the widespread nature of off-label use from members of the public, go on to Amazon, Google, or go on to Amazon, search for rodenticides, go down to the reviews and look at the photos. People are taking 5-gallon buckets of these. They're putting them out open for animals to come in and eat these. There's pictures all over the place where they're dumping them out on their landscape, which is completely off use. There's supposed to be certain amounts inside tamper-proof containers. And that is not happening by and large by members of the public. They're just taking these and putting them out on the landscape in broad application. So again, I think the benefit to licensed applicators, there's some oversight, there's some training, and while it's not perfect, it is certainly better than how members of the general public seem to be using these. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Senator Pearl with a question.
Actually, he answered it.
So thank you for answering it. Senator Rosenwald, anything? No? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Angela Brennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Angela Brennan. I am the president of AB Strategies, and I'm here on behalf of my client, the Household and Commercial Products Association. I want to draw your attention to testimony that was submitted directly to you in opposition of this bill. We strongly oppose this bill. I'd like to just highlight a couple of those things and be brief and also offer my assistance as you move forward. Rodents carry serious diseases. These diseases affect not only wildlife, as folks have mentioned they're concerned about, but pets and humans as well. And controlling rodent populations is very important. The products that the Household and Commercial Products Association represents are approximately 250 products that Granite Staters see on the shelves of their grocery stores and hardware stores, and they purchase from those local places every day. These are familiar names, and this bill would create a restriction and a limit on access for consumers. It is incredibly important that we allow Granite Staters the opportunity to choose how to best manage an issue in their household, like rodents. We don't want Granite Staters to be living with rodents. The products that our association represents produce affordable and effective solutions for dealing with rodent infestation. This is a practical challenge for consumers, and making this difficult for the average homeowner to address creates increased costs because rodents cause lots of damage to homes, including structural damage and electrical damage. The rodenticides are highly policed and monitored and regulated and tested at the federal level. There is a science-based regulatory framework in place, and this bill would create something brand new for New Hampshire alone. This would be the most extreme bill, not only in New England, but in the entire country. We are seeking the opportunity to collaborate with the legislature. If you should need us, we are here for you to discuss options. But now is not the time for this bill. As Granite Staters face an affordability crisis, we see rising costs everywhere. Let's not limit the access to affordable and effective treatment so that Granite Staters are not living among rats. I'm happy to take any questions, and again, available to the committee and anyone here. Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Robert Johnson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Rob Johnson, representing the New Hampshire Farm Bureau as the Federation's director. And we are in opposition to the bill. Some of our reasons are similar to the department's. Rodenticides are an important tool for our members, whether it's regarding protecting animal feed that's being stored or areas where human food is prepared and kept. But we strongly believe that the use and sale of pesticides should be the purview of the Pesticide Control Board. And you, as the legislature, over 50 years ago now, saw the wisdom of that, but recognizing the complexity of pesticide regulation, you established the Pesticide Control Board with the expertise and knowledgeable individuals. They as Director Russo said, they're looking at the big picture, and that is important here. And it's also, we're concerned that with legislative regulation, it sets a precedent where the board is being bypassed, and you'll be seeing bill after bill seeking regulation of individual pesticides. And in all due respect, the legislature does not have the knowledge and expertise where the board does. We liken it to fish and game seasons. I believe up until the 1980s, and Mr. Bergeron can correct me, but that the legislature set the hunting season in the state. And it lacked the knowledge and expertise of our biologists, and there are ramifications for it. In closing, I'd like to say that relative to license applicators, and I have been through the training and was licensed at one time. I am not currently, but I can tell you that part of the training drills into you the understanding of reading the label and the knowledge that the label is the law, and that is drilled into you. The label is the law. Consumers do not understand that. And I'd also, and my final item is the board met, Pesticide Control Board met a few weeks ago in March. We submitted a letter requesting that the board act on this and another pesticide that you're going to be hearing a bill and soon, seeking that they act post haste. Thank you for your time and attention as always.
So thank you for your testimony. So we want the board to have a little incentive. Maybe we can word this bill or arrange this bill to make sure that they have an incentive to, as far as usage. And that was one of their
You want to encourage them to put them on the restricted use list.
Yeah. So,
You want to encourage them to put them on the restricted use list. There's a process in place already.
right, and obviously, we have a piece of legislation, or they can act independently with the authority that they already have, but we want to make sure that something happens. So this is like, do something.
I question, can I
Kinda.
respond?
Yeah,
Just because I think they are well on the way to that, and like I said, we sent them a letter and was at the board meeting, and we are putting the pressure on them as well to act in, like I said, in post haste, soon as possible on this. So we're in support of that, but again, they don't need the authority, we don't think I don't know what should put in, I mean, you don't want to get into the position where you're telling them what the science is.
Right. This is the nuke option, apparently. That's the way I'm reading it. So any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Adam. Come on in. Yes. No. Karachi. Welcome, Adam.
There we go. So, good morning, Chairman Avard, Senator Pearl, Senator Rosenwald. My name is Adam Karachi, and I'm an owner of a local family-owned pest control company based in New Hampshire, but I'm also here on behalf of the New England Pest Management Association, which is an organization representing companies both large and small throughout New England that are committed to providing high-quality pest management services that protect public health, food, and property. I'm here to strongly urge you to pass HB 1676. I want to start with some context, which you've heard a little bit about already today, but this bill is worthy of understanding. Over 3 years ago, I was appointed to a state rodenticide task force to determine what action, if any, needed to be taken about anticoagulant rodenticide and its impacts on wildlife. After the task force concluded, I testified before the House that we should wait. The EPA was expected to come down with the ruling within 3 to 6 months on how to move forward with the rodenticides. That ruling never came. Every year since, I've sat before the House committee fighting against broad restrictions on rodenticide use, and every year I continue to wait for action at the state and federal level. 3 years later, nothing's happened from the EPA, and to be honest with you, I don't see that changing anytime soon. That reality is what brought us to this bill. Carol Foss from the New Hampshire Audubon Society, several House members, and I came together to find a framework that would actually work. Not just for our industry, but for everyone. Once we had that framework, I personally reached out to many of the manufacturers and distributors to confirm that the language worked for them as well. We made carve-outs to preserve options for general consumers. We crossed every T and dotted every I. And that careful, collaborative work is exactly why this bill passed out of the House by such a strong margin. Let me be direct about the opposition that you may hear. You'll hear that manufacturers and distributors are against this bill. What I can tell you is that several of the largest distributors and manufacturers in this country do not oppose this bill. I've spoken to them directly, and they've all told me they're in support of what we're doing. You may also hear that this bill reduces tools available to pest management professionals. That's simply not accurate. You may also hear that it limits the options for the general consumer. That's not accurate as well, which is why we have that carve-out in there. Licensed professionals will still have access to anticoagulant rodenticides, but the consumers won't. I know it's been brought up about second generation. It seems like first generation is being left off. That is also a concern that has been brought up every single year. So if we just restrict second generation, we're going to be back here next year and we're going to continue to have the same conversations. What this bill does is it eliminates the highest risk of misapplication by keeping these products in the hands of trained, licensed experts, which is where they belong. When our industry and an organization like the Audubon Society are aligned on the same legislation, that's not a small thing. There's no infighting, there's no disagreements between our members. We're unified behind this language that could serve as a national standard for responsible rodenticide use and wildlife protection. And that brings me to the final point, the opportunity that's in front of you today. New Hampshire has the chance to be the first state in the nation to pass the legislation of this kind. That is not an exaggeration. Right now, states across New England, as well as countless other states, are all watching and waiting to see what happens with rodenticide policies. And at least two of our other New England sister states legislators are already talking about the wording that we have in this bill right here. Not just the concept, but the wording in the New Hampshire rodenticide bill. We would love our tradition of being the first in the nation on election day. Let's be the first in the nation one more time and pass a bill for every other state to follow. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Senator Pearl.
Thanks, Adam, for coming in today. Would you agree that at least by getting some of these onto the restricted use list is going to resolve some of the issues? I mean, I think you're sending, we've sent a pretty strong message, and I agreed to co-sponsor this bill for the reason of sending a strong message that the Pesticide Control Board needs to act on some of these. Would you agree we're sending that message at least by filing the bill and getting some of these onto restricted use list?
Yes, but I think the downside is when these bills get brought up, it's all about exposure. Dr. David Needle from UNH talked about how a big portion of the exposure is the general consumer use. But yes, so going to a restricted would help, but only going to second generation, they're talking about all anticoagulants. That's what's impacting this wildlife. So, you know, the department, and I've talked to David Rousseau and many other members, they believe that second generation is the problem, more so than first generation. But in reality, we're dealing with continued pressure. And at some point, if it swings the wrong way, we could lose it all, which is what we don't want to have. So we're trying to create this framework so that we can end up having a bill that we can move forward with that makes sense and works in every state. I do understand this is New Hampshire and New Hampshire specific, but yes, from our industry standpoint, we're servicing many states on a daily basis. So being able to have something that works here as well as Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine does make a big difference for us.
I'll leave it there.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our final speaker is Joan O'Brien, patiently waiting. Periodically nodding. I'm watching. Yeah, you're not on microphone though. You gotta hit your button.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joan O'Brien. I am the president of the New Hampshire Animal Rights League, but I'm just going to testify on my own behalf today. I oppose this bill. I believe that by making these restricted use, it could actually make our problem of secondary poisoning of wildlife even worse. So I would support a full ban, whether it was done legislatively or through rulemaking, for the sake of our wildlife. So I just want to make 3 points. New Hampshire citizens want the carnage of the owls and the foxes, etc., to end. We hear it all the time. They're outraged by that. We gave you some pictures of dead animals. It really is heartbreaking to the New Hampshire citizens. Second, House Bill 1676 won't end this carnage. And third, the only responsible use of eschars is no use of eschars. So first, citizens want this to end. That's why we're even talking about doing anything. It's because of people being upset about Seabrook, the snowy owl, poisoned 3 times, brought back from the brink of death twice, dies the 3rd time. People don't want to hear this. And these animals that end up at the wildlife rehabilitators, we hear about them, but countless others are dying out there in the woods, out of sight. We don't even know how many, far more than the ones we see. So second, House Bill 1676 won't end this carnage. The sponsors frame it as a step in the right direction. I think it's a step in the wrong direction. The sponsors are willing to accept some percentage of wild animals to continue to die these horrible deaths. The bill will let the pest control industry continue to operate business as usual. And the business as usual has brought us right where we are today, with these animals dying and people getting upset about it. All the black boxes we see around our stores and our banks and our salons that people notice, they're going to be there. right after, if this bill passes, they'll be there the next day. And there'll be no reason for the pest control companies not to add even more. So finally, the only responsible use is no use. When used by the label, by design, these poisons still kill owls and foxes because their point is to poison a mouse, and a mouse is the meal of wildlife. So there's no responsible way to use these. And finally, because there's money to be made with these pest control contracts, we're setting ourselves up for even more boxes being, placed on the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, John. Questions? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you for your testimony. How do we evaluate human health versus animal health in terms of importance? And what I'm thinking of, again, in my early morning reading, the growing number of rats in Southern California and Texas has led to outbreaks of typhus, which has actually killed one person, is treatable if some professional knows how to recognize it. But how do we evaluate the balance between the impact of more rodents on human health versus the obviously terrible impacts on wildlife? And I'm just, it's not a loaded question. I really just want to know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And human health is very important. I don't think we have to give up one or the other. I think we can control the rodents in a better way, like through birth control, methods like that, while also keeping their populations in check. It's easy to find stats for whatever a person wants to believe. I had read that actually in California things had improved since they banned the poisons, and that the rat population was at an all-time low. So, stats, right? Also, the Rodenticide Review Task Force that David Rousseau's board organized to look at the problem, they looked at the health issues in New Hampshire to see if we've had any cases of typhus and things like that you've mentioned, and they aren't a problem in this state. And if we want, and what we're doing to control rats now, it's not working anyway. Otherwise all the pest control people would be out of business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. We're going to close the hearing on HB 1676, and we're going to open up the hearing to 1837 and hear from our prime sponsor. Whenever you're ready, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Representative John T. McDonald, and I represent Cal District 6, which is the communities of Wolfboro and Tuftonboro. I was approached by the New Hampshire Department of Safety and Marine Patrol to sponsor this bill. It can best be defined as a cleanup bill to try to clean up some standardize some fines and some safety equipment requirements and some mooring fees. Captain Dunleavy of the Marine Patrol is here if the committee has any questions why they need this particular bill.
Thank you, and any further questions? Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, that's it, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have a list of who wants to talk, or do I? Yes, I do. Okay. Tim, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. My name is Tim Dunleavy, and I'm representing the Marine Patrol Unit of the State Police Department of Safety this morning. I come before you in support of this bill. This is a bill that we worked with Representative McDonald on what I would consider a housekeeping bill. Some of these issues go back numerous years, and some, excuse me, some are recent issues that we would like to have remedied. I'll briefly go through each item, keep it brief, and then if you have any further questions, I'm happy to expand on them. The first one, beginning on line 9, is a situation where in voting law, we have numerous violations that do not have a fine amount attached to them. And so when an officer finds that it's necessary to issue a ticket to a boater for whatever one of these violations may be, if the boater wishes to plead nolo or guilty, because there is no fine amount attached, the courts are asking us to make the defendant appear in court to plea rather than plea by mail. And it's simply because there is no fine attached to the offense. For many years, that wasn't a requirement for them to show up in person. They could plea by mail. The judge would assess the fine. The court would then mail the fine amount back to the defendant. The defendant would then mail the check back to the court. It was a very burdensome process for everybody, including the courts. The motor vehicle statutes have this exact paragraph where a fine amount is set for all of those violations as a catch-all in the statute that allows a fine to be assessed and relieves the burden on the defendant as well as the court system. The next item that we were looking to address is boating violations are written in such that they're holding the operator of the boat responsible for any violations that are occurring on that boat. And in the case of riding the bow or the gunwale, you see it on television all the time where especially children are sitting up on the bow of the boat with the legs or the hands hanging over the side of the decks. That is a violation, but the way the current violation is listed, the responsibility for that violation is placed on the individual doing it. And so often we're seeing children who don't know actually be the violators. We're not engaging in chins petitions and all of those things for a simple violation. But we also recognize the dangers. It's sort of like a seatbelt law. If the children are riding around in the back seat with no seatbelt on, the officers on the road are not holding the child responsible. It's the motor vehicle operator. So that's what this paragraph does. The next thing is, for almost 19 years now, we've had a statute in RSA 270-62, which increased the fine for a congregate mooring renewal, like I say, 19 years ago. There was a separate statute where we did not catch, the legislature didn't catch, that the amount for the renewal was still $25, which was the original fee back in the 80s. So we're just asking for housekeeping there to catch up the old outdated paragraph. The next one, on page 2, beginning on line 4, a couple of years ago, we had to change the way we register our boats and require a second decal to accommodate an issue where New Hampshire was violating federal law by charging certain fees attached to a boat registration. Inadvertently, this paragraph was deleted, and it's something that had been on the books, again, since the 1980s, that just spells out for the boater what the proper display of their registration number on their boat hull is. So we're just reintroducing that language. It's not a change from anything anybody isn't already doing in practice. Lastly, we're looking to repeal RSA 270-46A. What that currently says is that if a person violates certain serious offenses by operating their boat, they're required to post a $200 bond, and then if they take a safe boating course, they get that money back. That arrangement was originally an attempt by the legislature, before New Hampshire had a mandatory boating education program, before they went the whole distance for everybody, they said, no, we're just going to require education for those committing serious violations. Well, now everyone has to take the course. So this has really become a redundancy, plus, quite honestly, an administrative nightmare, collecting $200, then refunding it once they take the course that they've already taken. So it's really an outdated statute, and since the new boating ed law has taken effect, again, over 20 years, we feel that there's no need to still have it on the books.
It's been 20 years already.
It's actually 25. Yeah, it's 2001 when it came into effect. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I thank you for your time.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. I have a couple of money questions. One, the fines on page 1 of the bill in Roman 2, do those go to the Navigation Safety Fund or somewhere else?
Thank you, Senator. It's an excellent question. Only certain violations, registration violations, but those fine amounts are already set. So at this point, I would say the overwhelming majority, if not all, off the top of my head, are just going to go to the general fund.
Oh, that is music to my ears.
I like music.
Are you singing now?
I wonder if, it's in, I looked at the fiscal note, it's indeterminable, but my second question is by removing the requirement about the boat safety courses, do you have any sense of what that's going to cost the Navigation Safety Fund or general fund, wherever that money currently goes?
Thank you, Senator. Quite frankly, I don't believe it's going to cost us anything because we simply have, anybody who has been assessed this $200 assessment gets it back when they take the course. So they sit online at home in their pajamas and they take a Vermont Safe Boating course because they can do it from home. New Hampshire is about to allow that, by the way. So we're then refunding that $200 directly back to them because they've taken the course. So the general fund or the Navigation Safety Fund is not seeing that $200.
Okay, but the general fund might see a benefit from Roman 2 on page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in many ways, I think it's going to be a cost savings to the agencies, but especially a cost savings to the courts,
Thank you.
plus the convenience for the defendant.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you all for your
Motion to
time.
move into exec. So move. Second. Oh, the hearing is closed, yes, in the process while I'm doing that, yeah. So there it is. So I seconded, all in favor of executing?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll move 1837 on pass.
Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion.
Looks like a good bill.
All right, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none?
Consent.
Consent by Senator Pearl. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
I,
Actually, don't.
yeah.
Actually, does.
Yeah, good job. All right. We're all,
That's all right.
all in favor of consent?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You want me to take this up?
3-0, yes, Senator Pearl.
All right.
All right, motion to move on to executive, seconded by Senator Avard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. You opposed?
Well, could we deal with House Bill 1535?
I want to hold until everybody's here on that.
35.
That-
Which one is that?
That's the one with the commas.
The commas.
Yeah.
This is a punctuations.
We can do that, I guess.
Can we discuss it?
We have one more hearing, and there's only 2 speakers.
Well, we're in exec still. Okay, let's exec,
Well, let's move that.
because I gotta go introduce a bill.
Oh,
So is there a motion on on 1535?
I would move.
And I'll second that. Discussion?
So, thank you. I'd like to move amendment 2026-1264S.
Second?
Thank you. So this bill was brought to us by Representative Corman as a punctuation corrector.
Yes.
And he changed some semicolons and periods, 2 commas. All this amendment does is add 3 more commas. On line 5, after a thermal energy, on line 9, after thermal energy, and on line 13, after thermal energy. And the reason is that will complete a parenthetical expression and be more clear grammatically. That's all it does. It doesn't change anything about thermal energy or anything else about the bill. Representative Corman was fine with it, as was, I think it was Representative Vos, who was here on the bill last week. It was either him or Harrington. They were both fine with it.
My English teacher is pointing at me going, I told you you needed to pay
You
attention.
need that second comma.
I didn't, so I'll trust you.
So any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, is there a motion to move ought to pass as amended?
So moved.
Seconded by Senator Pearl. All in favor of ought to pass as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Move consent.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Pearl. All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Senator Rosenwald will definitely take it.
Oh, my God.
Move to come out of
We
consent.
should have kept it out of consent.
No.
Why?
Thank
What was the number again? The number,
1535.
that's the one. 1535, yes.
You can take it off. if you-
Motion to move out of exec?
So move.
Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, we're gonna hear from the prime sponsor of 1253. And,
You better go.
yeah, I gotta get going. All right. Where is that? What was that number again?
1253.
1253.
Yeah, here.
You know, the one that we just executed.
Oh.
That's 1535.
1535. Where am I? Can't I find it in here? Representative, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. So this is a pretty straightforward bill. It'll probably be a pretty simple hearing here, I'm hoping. We took 3 bills.
Represent your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Comtois, representing Belknap 7. I do apologize.
Thank you, Representative.
But anyways, we had 3 livestock guardian bills in our committee. We combined them into one. Basically, what we have done is we've added guarding crops as one of the duties of livestock guardian dogs. We've heard testimony that, due to the wildlife population, having the option for dogs to guard crops is very feasible and is also helps retain a portion of the crops due to the high deer and turkey population and then other rodents such as rabbits and things like that. So that is one of the things that we've added. The other thing that we've added is that you must actually have, you can't just say that you have livestock or crops on your farm. You actually have to do it. It can't be just a garden in your yard. We found that there was someone that testified before the committee that a person had what they claim livestock guardian dogs, but they weren't really guarding anything and were creating a nuisance in the neighborhood. So we outlined what the parameters were for that. We also added in, last year we passed in vicious dogs and things, but we added it, it was a statement that said, if whether alone or in a pack with other dogs, it bites, attacks, or preys on game animals, domestic animals, fowl, or animal, or human beings, they could be subject to being euthanized. But we added in when not on the owner's property. We do feel that it's important that if the dogs are on their own property, that they shouldn't be held liable for any of those items if someone comes on the property. So that's it in a nutshell. And we also added in some penalties for violating these.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Rosenwald, do you have any questions? You do not. All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chief Suckling? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the moment here. I'll be brief. I'm Chief David Suckling with the Alexandria Police Department. Although I'm not completely in opposition to this bill, we're in opposition to some of it, in particular the crops. The crops aren't particularly well defined, we believe, and although Representative Comtois just said that it wouldn't be in someone's yard, that's actually in the bill that they're trying to pass, and that the dog would be actively used for guarding crops in a pasture, range, field, yard, or similar open agricultural environment. It says yard in there, and I understand the intent of this, and I really appreciate where it's coming from. But I think you're putting a huge onus on law enforcement to enforce these laws when they're kind of unenforceable. I mean, I think that it says, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards and forwards. Rather than primarily in a residential home, yard, or urban setting. It's contradictory in itself, and we're going to have to determine what's an urban setting. I would say that all of Alexandria is fairly rural, and most of New Hampshire is, and we're going to have homeowners that are using this statute to allow their dogs to bark all night. And we already have concerns with this, with some livestock stuff that we can't do anything about, which I understand, and that's okay. But this is just a little bit too far, and it's a little bit too undefined for us as to what is actually crops. We're going to end up in a position where we're going to have a Pomeranian protecting their petunias from predators, and in a certain setting that would be okay in this law, and we find that a little bit tricky to enforce. So, as written, we oppose this bill. I would mention that if crops is defined as something more commercial than a homeowner's corn in their yard in Alexandria, that may be a little bit more palatable.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for having me. I'll take any questions if there's any.
Do you have any? Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you. So, thank you for taking my question. Looking at lines 16 through 18, the word yard is used twice, but it's used in conflicting definitions. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes. In the first sentence, is actively used for guarding crops in a pasture, range, field, yard, or similar open agricultural environment, rather than primarily in a residential home, yard, or urban setting. And I know that sounds very minuscule, but the devil's in the details, especially when it comes to law enforcement, and someone's going to use the statute to have a barking dog all night that we really won't be able to do anything about when they cite this statute.
Can I follow up?
Paul,
Thank
sure.
you.
Sorry, I was thinking.
So, well, it's sort of two questions. One, do you think we should take the word yard out of line 17? And secondly, doesn't this whole sentence really talk about the dog has to be actively guarding livestock? So even if it's it might be barking all night, but the livestock is tucked away in the barn. And you would be able to do something about it then, wouldn't you?
Yes, I was more here to testify about the crop side of it than the livestock side of it.
Chief, if we were to change that to livestock yard rather than just yard, would that give you the little, I mean, I understand what the bill is trying to define.
And I do too.
Would that give you a little bit of room to go, okay, this isn't a livestock yard, this is your driveway?
Yes, I believe so. What I'm trying to get at, and I think you understand it already, but I'll just say it for clarity, is that, you know, someone that's living on a quarter acre in Alexandria that would essentially be fairly rural doesn't have a dog that's barking all night, and the owners are trying to protect some corn out the back or their lawn, because sod is actually as part of an agricultural crop sod. So we're talking about someone's grass. It's going to be hard for us.
I'll look to the audience. I don't think changing that to livestock yard would change the meaning, would it? Okay, we'll,
And
And I know it's small detail, but it's
And I
going to be
understand your
important to us on a Saturday night.
yeah, I understand your concern regarding crops. Maybe
Thank
we
you.
can- Maybe we can add another word in there, like commercial crops.
I think commercial would satisfy a lot of things in this bill. Any kind of commercial crop would be understandable to us.
I mean, the challenge for you is a half acre in somebody's garden a commercial crop or not? If they're selling some out by the road, it might be.
That would be easier for us to define than it is as written.
Maybe agricultural crops. Maybe we'll put it that way.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Can I follow
I
up?
appreciate the time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Similarly, on page 2, in lines 3 and 4, the word yard is used twice in conflicting ways. How might the first yard be reworded?
Sorry, what line was that?
That is line, so page 2, lines 3 and 4. They're 2 yards.
I think it's lines 4 and 5. 3 and 4.
Well,
You managed.
the way it printed for me
Thank
is
you.
4.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Is there a recommendation
It's the same sentence, yeah.
for the first yard that would be helpful to you?
I would leave that up to you to define.
It's the same problem.
Yeah,
Is
I
the
think you
same
understand the same
problem.
problem.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Anybody else who wants to testify on this? Any suggestions? Come on back up. Representative Comco.
Thank you. I think the key thing on page 2, line 3, and I understand the word yard can be conflicting, but I think we felt that we had to put in there because sometimes, as they mentioned, you could have agricultural crop or raising cut flowers. That is your livelihood, which would be a commercial crop or an agricultural crop, rather than. And the key there was rather than primarily in a residential home yard or urban suburban setting. And I think the word residential is really important as far as terminology in defining that. But we really have to be careful when we look at the word yard because of, like I said, somebody, who's doing, cut flower gardens or other things, and they're really managing that small acreage is actually earning a living off of that too. So I know this is a tough spot for people, and then also agricultural crops. What is an agricultural crop, right? So are flowers considered agricultural crops? Would be my question.
Yes, I believe they are. How about if we did active agricultural yard? Would that?
Okay. Right, because and the other thing is
Okay.
Commercial?
Yeah.
I want to stay away from commercial for a reason.
and there is, and I think there's an important distinction is people might be starting out and may not be making any income at the time, and it could take 3, 4, 5 years for that particular crop, such as certain berries, to even start producing.
Would you, Representative, would you be amenable to active agricultural yard? I think that it declares that it's not somebody's lawn.
Well, right, and obviously the intention is not to make it someone's lawn, right?
Yes.
So active agricultural yard, sure.
Yep, okay. Well, we can talk about that in an exec session. But. Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Anybody else
Thank
want to jump in? There's about still 3 more of you out there who haven't spoken. All right, with that, we will close the hearing on House Bill 1253. Do you want to exec this, or do you want to wait? It's you and me. All right, I'll take a motion to go into exec.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we're talking about 1253. There are reasons I want to stay away from commercial because it has meanings in other areas, and that we've been careful about defining, associating agriculture always with commercial, because there are very small growers who really would not rise to the level of commercial, but they still need to have the same protections, especially like a bill like this. They may only have 5 or 6 sheep in their yard. They may have as the example you heard, it could be a small cut flower operation. They wouldn't qualify as commercial. And we still want to offer them those same protections because we're seeing a significant uptick in smaller producers that are coming into agriculture in New Hampshire. We want to make sure we encourage that and not in any way discourage it. So that's why I'm hesitant to use that word.
I totally understand that, sort of. But I'm wondering if those small operations have registered as businesses with the Secretary of State, or if they're just growing flowers and I'm going to sell them out on a table
Sure.
in front of my house.
And it may be some of that. I think the key component you'll see here, and I noticed the chief just came back in, but I think the key component you'll see here is anyone who is actively growing in agriculture, they're probably going to be very responsive to law enforcement coming saying you have an issue with a dog. I don't think that's the chief's concern that he was raising. I think he's looking for this troublesome person who wants to try and use these statutes to say, no, you can't bother me about my barking.
My Pomeranian can be out
Right,
tonight.
because I have a rose bush and my Pomeranian was protecting it. I think that's the example that he was giving, and I believe that this would give him or law enforcement the authority to go in and say, we don't see this as an active agricultural operation. I hope it would. I mean, I
Okay.
realize these
I just-
situations get sticky.
Still a little confused about the commercial
I-
aspect, but
I would, I think a better definition, probably the commissioner could give you one and refer to the areas of statute that would, might be troublesome for a small producer to be
Okay.
considered commercial.
so you want to say active agricultural yard?
So here's what I'll do. I'll make a motion to pass on 1253.
Second.
And then I'll offer a committee amendment. On line 4, I would like to insert the word agricultural between guarding and crops so that you're guarding agricultural crops.
I'm sorry.
Line 4, page 1.
Yeah.
And I would do the same on line 8.
Oh, guarding agricultural crops?
Yes. And I'm quite certain that all of the definitions for agricultural crops will support any of the concerns that we heard. Then again, on line 17, I would like to add in active agricultural in front of, between the words, or actually between the comma in the word yard.
So between field, comma, and
And
yard.
active agricultural yard.
Yep.
We're getting a positive head shake. And then we would add that same thing on page 2, line 3,
Mhm.
between field, comma, active agricultural yard.
Yep, got it.
And I hope that resolves the concerns we had. Yes, no, I know the chief's okay. I'm looking at Rob now. No. I'm okay with the word yard. I think if we put active agricultural, we've got it, because you have stock yards and you have other things that use that term. So I will move that as a committee amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll move on to pass as amended.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Consent?
Absolutely.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And I will take this one out. And with that, I think we'll come out of exec. You want to make a motion? Senator Rosenwald, would you like to make a motion to come out of exec?
And I will second. All in favor? Aye. And with that, our work for the day is done, and we are done. Thank you.